Babi Ahluwalia is a New York-based fashion designer. She, along with her husband Sachin, founded a fashion design house, Sachin and Babi, back in 2009. This contemporary women's wear line specializes in refined evening gowns and separates. Well, hello and welcome to yet another episode of NewsX VaKu. I'm Megha Sharma. Joining me on the broadcast is a celebrated fashion designer, Babi Ahluwalia. Now, she is from the eponymous fashion design brand Sachin and Babi, a fashion design house that is based in New York City. It started off back in 2009, Babi, and of course, you were at that point of time known for your embroideries, and you still are, but you have further grown manifold in terms of what you create and the beautiful styles that you go ahead and portray for celebrities across the world. Of course, the brand Sachin and Babi is named after you and your husband. You guys, in fact, if I'm correct, met back when you were students and you were in the design school, and that's how you met and decided to now come up with this entire story that is your livelihood, and it also goes ahead and portrays and gives you an identity of who you are personally and professionally as well. It's great to have you, Babi, on the show.
Oh, well, thank you. Glad to be here. So, like you said, you've done your research. Yes, I'm a girl from New Delhi who arrived in the fall of '94 at FIT, met a boy from Bombay, Sachin, in the fall of '94, where I studied textile and he studied fashion. And we really were in our early 20s, and we had this, beautiful friendship, this sweet romance. That few years later, as soon as we graduated, we kind of course, took a loan from our parents, because we had, every young kid wants to live this American dream, whether it is working for a company, whether it's starting a small business, whether it's trying to make it in America, because that it really is, it's a beautiful dream to kind of at least think of. So we were really serious, ambitious kids when in our 20s. And we started, like a small design service business. Luckily, Sachin had inherited a fantastic set of workshops and a fantastic atelier from his mom. So we started our journey with no really big plans, but with a lot of gusto and a lot of grit, saying, when you're young, you really have no fear. You don't have that kind of bills to pay. So you're much more kind of, bashful, and kind of naivety helps you build those dreams. So you make a checklist of who you want to work with and pound the pavement, make phone calls, call friends, see who knows whom, and just present yourself, So we were very lucky in the 6-8 months of our business, which was really a design service business at that point. It was a more B2B kind of a business, where we wanted to work with, the top 5 designers at that time. In the 90s, it was the house of Donna Karan, it was Oscar de la Renta, it was, say, Calvin Klein. So it was, these kind of houses were on the rise. I'm going back 27 years now. And we were very lucky to meet Mr. De La Renta in the first 6 to 8 months of our game.
Okay.
And I don't know what he saw in us. I mean, he saw a suitcase full of beautiful swatches and ideas that were like, kind of novel. And he was like, really? You have a family business? This is something new? Mm-hmm. Are you brother, sister? What? Are you married? It was all kind of very sweet and silly, wonderful at that point. So we started working with him, and we worked with him till he passed. So that was a big division of our company, where we would work with designers like him. We luckily, through, in the business, the fashion business does seem large, but people do move about. So when his chief designer moved on to the house of Tom Ford or the house of, Valentino, we were connected to people there. So it organically grew from the fall. Our inception was really January of '97. We started work, and we kind of built our strength year after year. Met Milano Blahnik, who was just at that point, they had a partnership with George Malkamas, who had an in with Sarah Jessica Parker, who was the key gal of Sex and the City. So we started doing beautiful bejeweled shoes. So it was really, yes, luck by chance, but it was a lot of good work that we presented, and something that was very well priced. So we started, like Vogue really called us when we met the editors many, many years later, saying we were the best kept secrets in the design industry, because we had the savvy taste level of the West, but we had the authentic, beautiful work knowledge of the East. So it was a very unique place for us, and we, built our strength year by year. And as glamorous as it was a lot of hard work, because Sachin was in India about 8 times a year, and that's a lot of back and forth. That's a lot of training of the hands in Mumbai. And then when we started working with the European teams, they would take the initiative of flying their, like the House of Ascada or the House of Actress. They would fly their teams into Mumbai and actually station them in Mumbai and have them train our technicians. So, over the years, we've learned, we've built the strength of our facilities in Bombay. And of course, when you are in it for the 10-year run, it was 10 years ago that I said, as much as I admire these homes, as much as I love this fashion, I still can't afford it. And that my lifestyle is simpler, I would like to, have a point of view and have an eponymous line of our own with a better price structure that can actually be worn, be celebrated, be enjoyed, but not really so. I mean, I'd like to, weave a dream, but I'd like to still make my clothes and my accessories a little more accessible.
Okay.
So I guess that was the why as to why we started our own point of view besides the B2B.
Okay, all right. And then Sachin and Babi, how did that come into picture? Was it because of the fact that you were at this point of time dabbling with all these major designers, you're collaborating with them, you're getting all the success of the world, but then going ahead, like you already said, you wanted your brand to be much more accessible to the larger number of population that you were catering to, and therefore a breakout. But that was a daring, difficult, courageous decision.
And you don't realize till you actually do it, like because when you're so closely knit with a bigger house, you don't realize the pain points an own independent label can have, because yes, people know you in the industry, but in the outside, in the real world, people are like, who? So you have to really start from scratch all over again. But we are kind of risk takers and true entrepreneurs, so there is no guts, no glory. You've got to kind of find its way. There's no instant success. You learn through the expensive ways. I mean, you realize what a money pit your own brand could be, and that's where you are, but you've built a name, you've built a pretty sizable following, a pretty genuine following where people actually enjoy the clothes. And it's been 10 years, but I feel like I'm starting all over again, because the pandemic did kind of pause the businesses, all of our businesses, for a period of time. So it's kind of a refresh mode, and listen, it's so many years of experience. So you kind of, are well-trained hands, and the joy of dressing really should be day into evening. The joy of dressing should be really the aha of what you enjoy at work, what you enjoy at play. So that was the why as to why we started our own brand.
Talking about working with all these international designers, living in America, living the American dream, have there been, I'm sure there were changes that you had to adapt yourself to, but right now, because since you've lived there for years and years together, that's your first home, I suppose, not even the second one. How has the perception of an Indian origin person living in America changed over the past years that you have lived in New York?
I'm very fortunate that, living in New York, at least I was never very aware of the color of my skin, because, I'm married to a chap who's brown too, you see. Mm-hmm. So luckily, when we met Mr. De La Renta, he's Latin too. And in his studio, he had French people, he had Brazilian kids, he had Francisco Costa, who comes from Brazilian, he had Spanish designers. So was it a challenge? I wouldn't say so. The perception of India was a challenge to me, because I'm pretty, we mingle with our friends, with our American friends. We go to Christmas parties. I have a little Diwali holiday, so I call people over, it doesn't matter what denomination you are. So because we kind of integrated pretty well from the onset, like, we celebrated Thanksgiving, we would do a tandoori turkey at home instead of a regular turkey. I was invited, I still am invited to people's Christmas parties, so I invite people to my Diwali parties. So, you've got to be reciprocal and weave into a society if you want to make this your home. But the perception of India has to get changed, not just you. So it's that piece that took a while, whether it was the narrative of your own story, whether being very open about your own life journey, whether taking friends along to India when you would, whether you would have work friends come and travel in your factories and live through the experience of living there. That takes time. And that has to be lived.
As an Indian designer, so that person's an Indian designer, so all that they can go about and provide you or come put it on a platter is maybe a lehenga or a sari and embroidery. So is that sort of a stereotype that had to be broken into and then gone ahead and built about your own?
It was not that deliberate because I lived an American life, you see. So for me, my ode to India is always color. My ode to India is always some beautiful textural design. But in terms of just doing, I mean, lehengas and saris are brilliant and are wonderful, but that's not my life here. Yeah. I live an American life. When I go back to India, I will wear a salwar kameez when I go to Gurdwara. That's it. Like I don't think I'll wear a salwar kameez for any other functions because I'm not used to it. I would rather wear a really chic tunic that could be from an Indian designer with a pair of pants or with a pair of shorts. So it's how we think today. It's how we live our lives today. So that's how we have to be very authentic to our own voice and present to the world what makes sense to your life. And you have to listen to the consumer. I mean, it's not a dream, but where is she going in it? And how many times is she going to wear it? So if you make it relevant and you make it kind of very palatable, I think you will find a following. But you've got to not live in your own bubble. You have to keep your ears to the ground. You have to humble yourself in terms to where is the need. If people are getting sick of fast fashion because of the sustainability factor and they want a point of view that's a little bit more authentic and want to pay the money for it, then it's going to take time, but you will build your point of view out. It's just, there is no easy win, but you've got to kind of,
strong point of view there. And of course, absolutely. And before I let you go, Babi, the Indian designers in the international world are doing tremendous work over there. And while that has been witnessed in just bits and pieces, there's more that can be done in this entire industry. How can the Indianness, when you talk about the Indian community, when you talk about the story of India, be better portrayed, especially with such a creative medium as fashion design?
A good question. I have to think on that. I would imagine like people like us, people like Bibu, we're trying to do the best we can to be the best representatives out there, within in our own platform into how to do better. I mean, happy to be part of workshops and happy to be part of conversations that kind of educate people on what today's India is, because today's India is, very different from the perception of people of what it is. Still, somebody hasn't lived their life, hasn't traveled, hasn't had exchanges with India. It's always the perception of, like, to me, till I didn't go to Turkey, I didn't realize, oh my God, it's so modern. It's amazing. So it's,
Indians at one point of time, the perception that the international media had was of snake charmers and elephants. But that's something which is completely away from the reality of India.
Yeah, and embroidery work was only very binary and it's only these many stitches. There are so many stitches and so many weaves. So it is, a little laborious in terms of educating people. But if there is true interest, then, you be part of conversations and, talk it up and drum it up and excite people, because that's what you're here to do, excite and delight, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Babi. It has been such a pleasure talking to you. I wish you all the best for all your future endeavors.
Oh, you're very kind.
And
good luck.
Actually meet you in person and hold more of these discussions, especially when it comes to a creative field as fashion design. And there's so much that Indians can do abroad to bring about that sort of a story that weaves India and puts it in the perspective of individuals abroad, because they've started to slowly understand what India is, what Indianness is, what the ethos and culture is. But fashion designers and this industry can only bring a bigger platform to allow for that sort of a culture absorption and saturation that needs to happen at this
time. I agree. Well, thank you for having me. Stay well.
Thank you so much.
NewsX ITV network have proudly launched the VaKu Diaspora Broadcasting Network.
VaKu DBN will be India's first mainstream platform dedicated to the diaspora community.
Help support us. Become VaKu patrons at memboro.com/VaKu. You will get the first access to our interviews, make recommendations, merchandise access, ask questions, and get a shout out of thanks on our TV shows. You can also suggest to us who should get the VaKu Golden Chakra Awards and also tell us who should get into the VaKu Hall of Fame. Limited memberships are available at 100 rupees per month on Memboro VaKu. Sign up now. Log on to memboro.com/VaKu.